Hello. It's a weird time right now in the games industry. If you've not been living under a rock or in the middle of the ocean, or maybe even then, you've definitely noticed how many AAA game studios seem to be pivoting to live service, always online multiplayer games, and how it feels like traditional single player games are becoming rarer and rarer to find out there. There's your notable exceptions, of course. There's your Elden Rings, your Baldur's Gates, and so forth. But those exceptions kind of prove the rule, as they usually come from established big name studios or publishers with brand recognition, i.e., From Software and Larian Studios, respectively. But the topic of today's video is what's the best way for an indie game developer to respond to the changing tides of the industry around them? And it can seem overwhelming when you consider the magnitude of it all, right? Like if even the big name AAA studios can't seem to get their shit together and make a profit from releasing single player narrative games, then are indie game devs like you and I kind of screwed? Well, no. I don't think so. And indeed, I think as indies, we kind of have a unique advantage here in this environment. And to sort of support my conclusions and research, there's this one incredible article that surveys the state of the industry as it is right now by one Matthew Ball. And I'll make sure to link to it in the description. But the high level conclusion is one that should not be very surprising. There are more games than ever, and the number of hours that a person has in any given day to play video games has stayed about the same, or has even declined in the post pandemic era as we're kind of emerging into it. And alongside that, the cost of making games has gone higher and higher over the years due to the expectations and fidelity and the visual quality rising, right? It just takes more time and effort to make games that look better and better as the hardware gets better and as the bar keeps getting higher and higher from generation to generation. It's just, yeah, it's like it's getting exponentially more difficult to make games, and that cost is not going down anytime soon. And so the trend to the word towards the live service model that we're seeing from a lot of these AAA game studios and publishers is to try and wring more money out of your average person playing the games that they do, and to make sure that they make a profit on a AAA game that cost a bajillion dollars to make. But all that aside, from a personal angle, the games I play and the games I want to make are about as far as you get from these kinds of live service multiplayer games. I've never had any interest, at least thus far, in making a multiplayer game. The kind of game I find interesting is a single player, narrative focused game that makes it so that I don't need to talk to another human being. And I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. And if you're anything like me, you might look around and wonder what to do given the state of the industry, right? And so, reading in between the lines of that article I mentioned before, and just based on my own intuition, though it's getting riskier for the big AAA studios to make single player narrative focused games, the demand for these types of games isn't really going anywhere. The people that want to play these games, they're still around, and it's not like people's ideas of the kinds of games they want to play and the kinds of games they enjoy has just like radically changed over years. It's just the economics of the game industry and the situation that we're in has changed. And so really there's, in some sense, there's a market, right? Like, and sorry, I don't know, it feels kind of lame to talk in these like economic terms, but also it is important, right? You have to understand as game developers like who you're making your games for. And so there is a market still for the narrative focused single player offline games, right? And so this is where we as indie game developers can step up to the plate. If we can stay scrappy and make interesting single player narrative games that don't require hundreds of millions of dollars to make, and find innovative new angles of gameplay and interactions that feel fresh and unique, we can satisfy this demand and occupy the niche that a lot of these big AAA games have abandoned in favor of making live service games instead. The people who play video games, they're just like you and me. Like, they don't want to be bled dry and have their wallets milked for every possible job. They want to play video games and they want to have fun. And yeah, in some ways, even though the situation in the wider game industry seems to be getting more and more complicated, the objective for us as indie game developers remains simpler than ever. Make games that you want to play and you would find fun. Make interesting experiences that can't be found elsewhere and imbue them with your own sense of style and charm to give them personality and uniqueness. And of course, make sure that you do a good job marketing them, please, for the love of God, so that you can find an audience that appreciates these games you make. Ultimately, don't just chase the trends of the wider market and the games industry. Stay true to yourself and stay the course, and trust your own intuition over that of anyone else's, including mine. And keep working hard at whatever you're making, and in time, you'll find success. Or at least I hope. Thank you.